Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at johnnydellsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag hashtag JD49, as the usual suspects have checked in. We thank you for watching the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast, where we go over the whys and hows. That will not change today. We will be doing that. Merry belated Christmas, as Dr. Steve wishes us. Thanks for checking in. I got a really good gift for Christmas, Johnny. But I can't wear it because it's from China. And so the sizing, the way my bank account is set up, I feel like that Jamie Foxx, or what is that? Chris Rock? Who is that? The way my bank account's set up. Oh, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart does that bit. Well, yeah, the way the sizing is set up, 2X doesn't mean the same thing, but it is the gold jacket, the gold old school. You've seen my starter jacket that reminds you of George Seifert I got. Well, now this year, I got the gold standard, I call it.
I don't know where it went. I used to have one. I used to have one of the gold bomb, like
they're
a
tough to find.
vintage gold bomber jacket.
Yeah.
And I don't know where it went.
So it just says 49ers on the
disappeared.
back and just has the SF here, and then it says starter on the sleeve. Is the one that I got, but we got to do some resizing. And my folks are so nice. They actually gave it to my cousin. She was over for Christmas, and I was like, Aaron, you should put this on. And she's like, oh, because she's from the Bay Area. She moved here as I did, and a longtime Niner fan. And she put it on, and it looked just awesome on her. And my dad's like, just keep it. And I was like, zoinks! Like, I thought we were taking that back so I can get it resized. And he's like, we'll just buy you one. I'm like, okay, I didn't know you were ballers like that. That's fine. I mean,
I mean, if
she
it
does look
fits,
good in
it
it.
ships. So, but yeah,
So
I used to have one. The very first 49ers game I ever went to at the Seahawks Stadium, I wore it. So I had it 20 years ago. Don't know where it is now. It got lost in the kerfuffle shuffle somehow. I don't know. I can't blame my wife, because I would blame her, because that's usually what happens when I can't find things. But I can't even blame her for that, because I haven't seen it in over 10 years. Don't know what happened. I think I lost it after I moved out in college, from my dorm rooms and on-campus apartments and stuff.
Well, that was back before electricity, so.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. What I think happened was, I think Holmgren took it. That's my
I think he's the same
theory.
size.
Look. I may
Smaller.
be like 8 inches shorter than him, but I'm pretty sure he took it and put it on his wall. Because here's the thing. When where I went to college, the Seahawks used to lease their practice facility from the university I went to. And during the summer, the on-campus apartments, they would use those to house the coaches during training camp. And they use the dorm rooms for the players. And 1 year after coming back, the I moved right into the same apartment I was in, and one of the couches was broken. And that was definitely a Seahawks coach that broke the couch. It was it was a very large human being sat down in it really hard and totally like straight broke the framing. And we had to pay for it, which I thought was a little messed up because I'm like, why are poor college students paying when these coaches making well into the upper six figures are breaking the couch? We got to pay for it. I think I may have left that in that apartment, and I think Holmgren took it. That's my theory on that one.
You're sticking to it.
I'm
Well,
sticking to it.
what was I'll ask you regarding Christmas, what was the favorite gift that you were able to give?
Oh, give. Definitely what I got my wife. She's watching in the show as well. What I did is I wrote her a letter, a 2-page letter,
Oh, we're gonna get
telling her
mushy.
how special she is, and I bought items representing what she is in my life, and wrote it out in the letter. And it wasn't like anything super fancy. It was like super glue because she's the glue to the family.
Oh, but still,
Um,
geez, say some love for the rest of us. Man, you
and so it was a whole thing like that. So that was the gift that I was most proud of, I guess, this year.
well, that is pretty cool. I'm sure Dawn appreciated it. Good to see you in the chat. Dawn, thank you for sharing your husband. Dawn gave us a Christmas present. She's sharing her husband, so we always appreciate that.
She got me a really nice 49ers hoodie. So
Awesome.
it's very much like the Shanna hoodie. And so
Oh,
I'm totally digging that. Yeah. I haven't been able to wear it yet. We had, obviously had to wash it first. So
yeah, yeah. Wow. I want to point out Glenn, man, shout out to Glenn Sweet. He says, I've been watching the Niners since Y.A. Tittle. Never seen anyone break down Niner football like Johnny Dell. That is an awesome
man,
compliment, man.
that is super sweet, Glenn Sweet. Uh
See what you did
that
there.
is that's there. Appreciate that one. Long time Niner fan going since YA Tittle. See, as a younger guy, I always heard about YA Tittle. Didn't have I've honestly never been able to watch an entire game of YA Tittle. I've seen some of the highlights and everything, but I've never seen a full
Sure.
game. And I wonder if, the kids today, that hearing about Joe Montana and Steve Young is the same way, that you just hear that they're great, but
Yeah.
they've never actually watched an entire game. You've seen some of the highlights, but never actually watched a full game. And that's something that's interesting. There are a lot of those old 49ers games are on
John
YouTube.
Brody for my dad
Um,
is John Brody.
Right. And so, I just wonder, is the only paradigms for quarterback play that a lot of younger 49ers fans have actually more the contemporary quarterbacks? Are they the Aaron Rodgers, the Tom Brady, the
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes? Um, and forget what guys like Steve Young and Joe Montana actually look like.
Right. It is crazy to think about. And Michael Norris checking in talking about Kezar Stadium. My dad has told me that they used to finagle their way in for free. They would bring a like sub sandwich, give it to the security guard, him and his three cousins, and he would just let them in like time after time, and you would just go to the football game for free. That I mean, just think about that and think about going to a game. As Marcos, if you noticed, Marcos said he's going to
He's
the game
going to the Lions
against the
game.
Lions. We'll talk a little bit
That's
about that.
brave. Yeah.
That's going to be awesome, though. I mean, nothing like Monday Night Football. I went to the first Monday Night Football game this year. It was just absolutely amazing. When we were
Really
really,
set you up for disappointment on the year, didn't it?
it sort of did. However, that memory ain't going anywhere anytime
No,
soon.
I just mean like you go into that game, it's gonna be awesome. We come out with a huge victory. This
Oh
season
man,
is awesome. And
domination,
then, well, then the
devastation.
next 2 months happened.
Yeah. So very cool. Yeah, to reminisce a little bit, talk about the older quarterbacks. So let's get into a little bit. We'll I mean, we can talk a little bit about the Lions game. That's fair. I get it. But the topic at hand really has been Kyle Shanahan. And I love the
Yeah.
thumbnail We talked before the show, and I want to get into that because it's quite hilarious. The idea of reimagining himself and Kyle Shanahan, if you've checked out the thumbnail, is Shanahan, and it reminds us and everyone, I'm sure, of Peyton Manning. Are you saying Peyton Manning?
Peyton?
Peyton
Peyton.
Manning. He's so
Peyton Manning.
comedic timing. I like to think that I have comedic timing. I like to think that I do, but man, we were
Yes,
talking
just like
about,
Will Shatner. Yep.
yeah, that was bad, and it was on purpose, as I hope you can tell. But Peyton Manning, his comedic timing in commercials on Saturday Night Live, on just all those things, like it's just so funny. And now he's debating Manning, like all these commercials, so good. But that thumbnail reminded me of the Peyton Manning, and I have a soft spot for him because he played in Indiana for all those years. It was hard not to be a fan of what he was doing. I'll never root for the Colts. I'll never care about the Colts. But look, when you live in Indiana and Peyton Manning is the quarterback of a team that does well every year, you just kind of like him. That's just the way it is. So seeing him on TV is just always hilarious. But okay, so Kyle Shanahan, with I like how you say major changes to the playbook, handing over play calling duties in the description. That's
Yeah.
definitely things that people are thinking about, and we all want to hear what you have to say about it because your knowledge of the game. So the first question I want to get into is play calling.
Mhm.
I have texted you in games 3rd and 7, and we run up the middle, and it's like a point where we could really use a first down. I know every third down is important, but it's like a pivotal part of the second half, and I'm like, why are we running the ball? It's like, and I'm a little bit above a casual fan, but I'm not above you in knowledge. And so I want to ask you, do you go through that and you give him a pass because we know your love and support of Kyle Shanahan, or do you get frustrated at times as well?
Well, so let's back it up and understand why I have a love and support of Kyle Shanahan. And by love, I mean I really enjoy watching his offense uh, and the design of his offense. Do I love him as a person? I don't know him as a person, so I can't tell you whether I would like him, love him, not. We wouldn't get along. As a person with Kyle Shanahan, I have no real feelings either way. But as far as why do I care for him as our coach is because I I started watching the 49ers coaches tape back in the Greg Roman days. And this is where it's really fascinating to me to see people saying we should trade for Jim Harbaugh. I've seen that out there. And I'm like, do people not remember the Harbaugh offenses? Um that team, Vic Fangio had as much to do or more to do with our success than anybody on that coaching staff with the Harbaugh years. Harbaugh has proven he's a great coach, so I'm not taking that away from him. But considering that he was a quarterback, and you would think it would be an offensive guru, we forget how not great their offenses were. And I think we also color it through the last half of 2012 when Kaepernick came in and adding the read option and zone read elements, what that did because of the surprise around the league and not being certain how to really defend that the offense was extremely explosive and you had some really high scoring games. That being said, their average points per game down the second half of that season is still less than what we averaged most of last season. Um, so this isn't like, and that was with all those factors going in. If you look at 2011, 2013, and 2014 as those offenses, they were not explosive offenses at all. And actually, they were very frustrating to watch because you had Frank Gore out there just chugging away for 2 and 3 yards a carry. They led the league in 3 and outs. And so that was the offense that I started watching and seeing Colin Kaepernick, where it was so frustrating because every time he'd hit his back foot, the ball wouldn't come out. There was always an extra hitch and an extra hitch and an extra hitch. even when the ball would come out, there was times it was supposed to be a timing offense. It would be hit that back foot, hitch, then throw to the second read. And it's like, well, you're a hitch late. You're actually about 2 hitches late. And that would, and just seeing that the offense was struggling with sequencing and things. And that's been very much Greg Roman. Like, he can dial up a run game, but tying that run game and pass game together fluently has always been a challenge. And I remember when he was with the Ravens, people would sit there and go, yep, that's a Greg Roman offense for you. And so it's weird to me that people are like, well, could we trade for Harbaugh back? And you go, what did Harbaugh accomplish that Shanahan hasn't? That, they both lost the Super Bowl. So I don't know, where we get that get that. But, then seeing the Jeep Christ year and then watching Chip Kelly's year, and Chip Kelly's year was so frustrating because the playbook was so small. I mean, they would run the same exact play from the same exact formation and personnel 4 or 5 times a game. And you would see teams start jumping it by the fourth quarter. And you go, oh, okay, you need more than 10 plays going into a game, because just because you run them all at lightning speed doesn't mean, that's going to be the way to go. And so seeing that, and then Shanahan coming in and watching the offense and going, okay, every play call has a purpose. Every design has a purpose. Every movement in here has a purpose. Everything ties to something else. There is no formation that doesn't tie into multiple plays. There's no play that doesn't tie into multiple plays. And so that's where I look at it and I go, okay, we this is an offense that I was wishing we would see. And so that's where that support in there comes in. And you could see the building blocks of it in 2017 and 18. And it reminded me so much of his dad's offense, which we all loved in the 90s. We loved watching the 49ers with that offense. And so seeing, now the 20 years later kind of evolution of that. But and here's where, again, people will say it's such a different game. You go, okay, let's also really put these times in perspective. So Mike Shanahan, or Kyle Shanahan, when he gets to Atlanta in 2015, okay, 10 years before that, his dad was at Denver with the Broncos. 10 years before that, he was was just getting to Denver from San Francisco, bringing the same offense. Kyle Shanahan in 2 years will have been here for 10 years. And so if we look at that, we say, how much has the offense changed from his first season to in 2 years from now? There are changes, but it's largely still the same passing concepts. It's the same run concepts. It's the same offense. It's evolved a little bit over time, but it's not like, and when we say evolve a little bit over time, okay, this route's going to be an outside release instead of an inside release. We're going to change the splits on this just a little bit. We're going to change maybe what personnel we run this play out of. It's not wholesale changes. This isn't like, okay, now we're running, a streak paired with a deep over to now we're going to run it as, like a big inside stemming and then corner route paired with that, because now we're creating a new concept or something. It's not like that. It's just little things. It's going to be that kind of stuff. And so over 10 years, there hasn't been that much change. Well, that's the same sort of thing when we look at from his dad's offense to now, like in perspective of time. So watching a lot of that is still the same. Now defense is changing, so your reads change a little bit. Steve Young had talked about that, right? He was like, I know the plays, but I don't know the reads. And so you go, okay, that's fair enough, because the way teams play him. But all that comes back to the way that he can sequence and time things out and understands what defenses are doing within their zone coverages is just different. And so I appreciate that. And I appreciate how that everything can be tied together. Now, where I get a little frustrated with him are on some of those calls. It's like, okay, you had a play here that could beat 8 of the 10 possible calls that you could face, you faced one of them, and that you weren't prepared for, and now you run it on 3rd and 6 for 2 yards, and you're punting the ball. That stuff does frustrate me. Of like, okay, what are we doing here? This is our best option there. That I don't fully understand. Those are the times that I don't understand. I don't understand in the last game on the opening drive not going for it at midfield when your season's already done anyways. Why not go for it? It was 4th and inches. I don't understand that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. And some of that, I mean, the first half I get not going, that's could be argued, but some of that stuff again, just like I said, like 3rd and 7, and you're basically, in my mind, what that says is we are okay with giving you the football. And I just don't agree with that at certain
now that's the
times.
Harbaugh special, though. If you really think about it, like Harbaugh special was,
Oh yeah.
was field position, pump the
Right.
ball away, trust your
Believe in your
defense.
defense. Yes, trust the defense. And the defense would be trustworthy a lot of those times. I mean, to be honest. And yeah, it's just something where, again, we're only talking about it because I truly believe, I believe this, that if we were healthy, the wins would come. And I don't think that we would be having this discussion, but losing sheds an awful light, an awful lot of light in areas. We're taking a flashlight
Yeah.
and we're shining in spots that normally in your house you don't look for. And now you're like, oh, there's some cobwebs over here. You don't think about that when everything in the house is going well. And so I think that's also part of it.
Well, I mean, that's like they always say, winning is a great deodorant. Well, when you lose,
It's
think
stinky.
you start going, all right, where's that? You're playing that single guy apartment game. Find the smell,
Oh god.
where it's where, and then it turns out it's you, and you're like,
You're like,
oh
"Oh,
yeah, okay,
no.
oh I got a shower. Um,
I let my son
but
become the smelly kid in class?"
but but that's why I said single guy. When you're married, your wife lets you know when the pop-up timer has gone. But anyways, I think that's what's starting to happen. They're playing find the smell right now on that side of the ball, I think some of it is definitely injuries with Trent Williams going on IR. I think they're now number 1 in cap APY on IR this year. The Cowboys were leading that with well over $100 million APY on IR this year, and now the 49ers are at something like $110 million APY on IR. So, and people say, well, those can be skewed numbers, and you go, yeah, yes and no, because what it really does speak to is the top of your roster on IR.
Yeah.
Because especially the 49ers have been a top heavy roster. We've talked about this, that going into this season they were top heavy because you have a few guys that are making a lot of money. They're making money at the top end of the market, like Trent Williams, like George Kittle, like Fred Warner, like Nick Bosa, like then Brandon Ayuk got his extension, like Debo Samuel. And so you have Christian McCaffrey. These are all people that are top end of the market paid for their position. And when you lose a Christian McCaffrey, when you lose a Trent Williams, when you lose a Brandon Ayuk, now you are seeing the top end of your roster is not there. And because you've had to pay them so much, their backups are not good backups. These are, you only have so much money around. You're not getting that veteran, swing tackle to be there that can step in when Trent Williams comes down. And we've seen that Jalen Moore was okay in his first game, and he's been getting worse since. Spencer Burford was put into a tough position to play left tackle when he hadn't played tackle in the NFL, and that did not go well. It didn't go well. Nick Zakelj was surprisingly as bad or worse than Aaron Banks. Now again, he only got the one shot at it. We'll see how he does this next game. I do wonder if Burford's going to get the start at left guard, and they're going to try and figure out something with the tackle position. I don't know. But you just have not as much money, and that trickles down to, you sign a guy like Devondre Campbell, because the other two guys, you can't offer them enough money to come be players on your team, and because you have a top heavy roster, and so you're left with the Devondre Campbell, who then we know the story of Devondre Campbell this year. And some of that is on roster construction, some of it's on drafting. 2022 and the 2022 and 2023 drafts were not great. They just weren't. You didn't get enough to supplement that you are a top heavy roster. And so, while injuries definitely play a part in it, it's not like, they don't have some ownership over what has happened with those injuries happening. That there's still a smell. I mean, it's that losing like this really does highlight the smell that's there, and that smell is some poor drafting, some poor draft choices, some poor free agency moves, and also highlighting the players taking for granted that they were just going to execute. There was clearly a disconnect on the team of not being locked in offensively. We're seeing too many guys make too many mistakes, and veteran guys like George Kittle would be making mistakes and missing assignments,
dropping
and Trent
passes.
Williams losing reps that he normally wouldn't lose. Brandon Ayuk struggling to get going at the beginning of the year. Clearly was not at 100% and at full go at the beginning of the year. Whether that was lack of training while he was away, or what, I don't know. And you do wonder how much time was he spending, working really hard to train while he was like in a hold in, because he's spending his whole time during practice just walking around when everybody else is doing drills and doing running plays and then conditioning, and he's just standing there. Is he really going away when everybody else is partying out all night and hanging out? Is he really then going down and working for 4 and 5 hours like everybody else was? No. So he was not in shape and ready to go at the beginning of the year. And so you just have all of these things cascade, and the team, there's a smell, and they've got to address the smell. Is it Kyle Shanahan reinventing himself? I don't think so. I think what we've seen from film is that plays are there all year long. The sequencing, he still knows. Kyle Shanahan still knows how to sequence plays. He still knows how to attack the defense that he's facing. The difference is, you've got to reevaluate how you're constructing your roster, and being that there's been so many different misassignments, I think they really need to evaluate who's in charge of what in prepping the players. And that's on the coaching staff. They've had a lot of turnover, and that means, there's a lot of different assignments that coaches have. And it's not just one guy. This doesn't work in that Shanahan's going to watch the film, put together all the plays, and then say, here guys, here's what we're going to run. Tell everybody the plays that we're going to run. They don't, and then watch the defense. That's not how it works.
The smell of death surrounds you, Dr. Steve. Um, so
Ooh, that
I
smell.
feel like, yeah, it's just all things are heightened when you're losing, and you look at, we've talked about the 49ers leading the league in injuries over a 5 to 6 year span, that it is just ridiculous. Like, you look at who's the strength and conditioning coach, or like all this stuff, and it's like, my thing is for the season is this: you knew, 49ers, you knew in the beginning of February of what Dre Greenlaw meant to the team. You knew better than we did, because he's in the locker room and we are not. So you knew even more than what we did, and we have eyes, so we see. And you did not take care of business to get things shored up in order to get Fred Warner a running mate for the season. And to me, that was the biggest, because I was thinking about this, like, what was the one domino that maybe
Yeah.
really started the whole thing? And to me, it is absolutely two words: Dre Greenlaw. That is
Well,
the number one thing. We didn't take
and
care of it.
I think there was also the belief that D Winters would be able to fill in and ascend into that spot. We had talked about this last year that the thinking, at least what appeared to be, D Winters and Dre Greenlaw's height, weight, and speed and measurables are almost identical, and so I believe the thinking was that Dre was going to walk after this year, and D Winters was going to be the guy for that spot. Now, D Winters has not been able to stay on the field. He has every single game he's played, pretty much, he has gone out of with some sort of injury. It's been a chest injury, it's been an ankle, it's been a knee, it's been a head. He's had, I think, 3 head injuries this year. So don't know what it was with that. So I do believe that that's why they didn't want to put too much money into that linebacker spot and say, okay, once they couldn't get Eric Kendricks, they weren't going to get into a bidding war. They were going to say, well, if we can't get somebody really good, then D Winters will be the kid that we believe will step in. And one, he hadn't quite ascended into that spot. You love his energy. Hasn't been able to really break that next level in there, and hasn't been able to stay on the field. So that, and then you had the injury to Tatum Bethune, who's been on IR for a while. They just opened up his practice window to take him off IR. So I think there was hope that the young guys, or not even hope, a belief in the young guys. And well, that wasn't well put in there. At least that seems now. Now that may pay dividends if, with all the playing time that D Winters did get this year, can he stay healthy when it goes into next year? But the 49ers, they still, when you look at, like, there was a lot higher league-wide injuries pre-2020. But because the 49ers made a change after 2020. And what ended up happening was they saw about a 33% drop in injuries as far as games lost due to injuries from the team, but it's still really high. To put it in perspective, I looked at the Chiefs' games lost due to injuries, and I think our lowest season we had was 2021, and it was 175 games lost due to injury. This season is probably going to be north of 240. It's probably going to be in that area. Hard to say exactly how many because it depends on who misses the next 2 weeks. But right now they're at 206 games lost due to injury. That's a lot of games lost. For perspective, I think it was in 2021 and 2022, the Chiefs, they had like 96 games lost due to injury and 105 or so. They've had one season where it was above 170 games lost due to injury. One, I think that's our floor. And the only year that they had less than that was, or more than that, was 2019, and they ended up playing a team in the Super Bowl who had actually had more games lost due to injury that year. We had something like 15 more games lost due to injury than the Chiefs did in 2019. Last year, it was something like 30 more games lost due to injury than the Chiefs. And their highest year was actually kind of skewed because they had like 7 backup guys all go down for the season in training camp. And then, but starters wise, they were pretty healthy throughout that year. But when you have 7 guys go down for a 17 game season, all in training camp, actually, 17 game season and then the playoffs. So it was like 20 games. When you have 7 guys go down, that's 140 games lost right there by players. So, there is some nuance in the numbers, but they did see a dip, but it's still been a situation where,
still bad.
Okay, you've got to figure out, how do you get that number below 150? If you get this number below 150, I think this team looks wildly different. 2, how do you build the depth so that when these injuries happen, we're not all sitting here going,
right. How do you get someone like
crap.
Kendricks? Kelly's saying, they tried to get Kendrick, all these things. How did that should have been a home run slam dunk. He should have been overjoyed to sign with us and not have that teetering where, oh no, he went to Dallas. And we're
Money
talking about
talks.
Kyle Shanahan having all these decisions to make. Glass City and
Well, we also
David.
have to remember there's some personal connections there. So we forget Eric Kendricks played for a long time in Minnesota with Mike Zimmer as his head coach, and Mike Zimmer is the defensive coordinator in Dallas.
Yeah.
So that obviously, that's going to play some into it. Money's going to play some into it. So, understanding, like, if you're a player like Kendricks and you're saying, I'm going to sign for 1 year somewhere as fill in, where am I going to go that I will best prove and earn my next contract and earn a spot on a roster in 2025 and with a team that should be competing this year? The Cowboys are supposed to compete this year. 49ers are supposed to compete this year. So, if you're looking at that and you say, well, I don't know exactly what the 49ers are going to ask me to do. I know exactly what Mike
What
Zimmer is going to
Zimmer?
ask me to do. I already know the entire defense. That gives me a leg up. I know that once Dre Greenlaw comes back, I'm not starting with the 49ers. And I really don't have a pathway to prove that. I know Mike will give me a chance to start if I'm there,
Or she?
and that will then help me up for 2025. So there's also that side of it. Like, I see where you're coming from, Adam, being like, well, they failed. Well, yeah, but I mean, it was more than one factor. It wasn't just like you could sit here and say, well, we'll give you another $50,000 and then he comes over and signs.
No. Yeah, that's fair.
There's also those personal connections.
So we're talking defense, and I was saying that Glass City and um, David have been asking about Sorensen, and I want to ask you about it while boosting the algorithm. So I've talked about we're going to do some algo boosts. If this is your first time checking us out live on YouTube, it is probably because you hit the notification bell. So be sure to not only show people your phone, show people the channel, but hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel. And when we are watching live, we boost the algorithm right away by hashtag JD49. But here's our first algo boost, and it is boost. It is
Or boost.
regarding Sorensen. So in the chat, I want you to put hashtag stay or hashtag go. If you think that he will stay or go, not what you want, but what does your gut say? Will he hashtag stay or hashtag go? And we're going to ask Johnny then as well, because David brings up an interesting point when he says Sorensen's defense looked better with Huff and Greenlaw on the field together. The caliber of players absolutely unequivocally
Absolutely.
matter.
Yeah.
And so, again, I want you to put hashtag stay or hashtag go for what your gut says, not what you want in your heart of hearts, but what you think Kyle Shanahan, what the team will do. And then I'll ask, I think he stays, and then I'll ask Johnny your take on the defense and what you think is going to happen there.
So, I was pretty set on Sorensen just needed to be sent out the door about a month ago. Seeing the defense with Huff and Greenlaw, I go,
Looked a lot better. It
that
looked
did
a
look a
lot
lot
better.
better.
Like, come
Now
on now.
some of that was a rain game with the Rams when Stafford did not look good. Stafford was not sharp.
But Greenlaw was just
Greenlaw was
all
all over the
he
field.
was all
He was
over the
all over
field.
the field. But when you also have to then say, if your defense is absolutely reliant on a guy like Dre Greenlaw, where there's not very many of them in the league. Whereas because I can look over at the Chiefs and say Nick Bolton does not have the same speed. Now, he's a great linebacker, but he's not quite. They don't have that linebacker duo of a Fred and Dre. Their defense is top in the league, and I look at what the Eagles have done with Vic Fangio, and I say, I don't see that them just having this blue chip linebacker talent everywhere, and their defense has been really good all year. And so, but you're talking about two gold standard defensive coordinators, Vic Fangio and Steve Spagnuolo. I'm not seeing that same sort of thing from Nick Sorensen. I remember 2020, we had so many injuries, and the defense then, while their numbers were similar, they just looked a little more solid. They looked like the defensive line was playing a little bit better. They looked like the secondary was a little bit more tied into what the linebackers were doing. And we'll get to that, Cornelius. We will talk about that one.
Thanks for the super chat.
Yeah. And we it just hasn't quite looked that way. So I would understand why he would be kept, but I also wouldn't be sad if he went. And now here's what I think will happen. I think Shanahan in this year is going to go into this offseason and say, you know what? I really just kind of looked at everything, and it had been off with Wilks and his coaching staff all year. Remember, and Shanahan talked about that. He was asked about why Bobby Turner didn't come with him to Cleveland as running backs coach. That's been like the only stop that Bobby wasn't there. And Kyle just flat out said, he goes, well, because I was a coordinator and I wasn't a head coach, and you don't always have you don't have the choice about who is and who isn't on your staff. Those decisions aren't up to you. And that's what happens there. And when he brought Steve Wilks on, that was very much what was done with Steve Wilks is you will work with the existing staff we have. And it just felt like that entire relationship within the organization was a little dysfunctional, and it wasn't quite working there. There was, Steve did not really fit the culture of what the 49ers had built with their coordinators before. And, there's the infamous in the booth to on the sideline sort of thing. And that more speaks to difficulty in communication between him and his assistants than straight to the players. And there's difficulties in communication there. And so I think it was just coming off of the lost season and saying, really, this has just not been a great fit. We made it work as best we could, but we're going to go in a different direction. I don't know what that direction is, but we're going to go in a different direction. And then realizing that he kind of unseated a guy without a solid plan for what was coming after that. I don't think that happens this year. I think the only way that he let Sorensen out the door is if he knows beforehand that either Saleh or Ulbrich are coming. That I think that's those are the only two guys I think that would be on his radar. And he's not going to go through a bidding hiring process where he fires Nick Sorensen and then has to if those guys decide to go somewhere else or do something else,
right,
then is like, oh, well, what do I do? And then I'm promoting from within again for somebody that may not be fully prepared for that moment. I mean, Nick Sorensen at the beginning of the season was obviously not fully prepared. And Kyle Shanahan didn't feel like he was, didn't really have that much trust in it because, as he admitted during preseason, he handed over offensive play calling duties so that he could be on the defensive headsets and hear what was going on and hear the communication himself and hear how everything was going. So I think unless he knows that he's going to get one of those two guys, that Sorensen stays. If it's announced that Sorensen's on his way out, I will promise you that either Saleh or Ulbrich will be on a plane the next day or within 2 days. That's the only way this happens. There's going to be some quiet, talking to and reaching out and seeing, okay, can we get a commitment here? Because if you do, you will have a job.
Right.
That's the only way I think that happens. Saleh makes sense because there's still a number of these guys are worked under Saleh, like Kasurik. I know people are kind of pushing back on Saleh and things. I think Saleh can be your Spagnuolo. I think Ulbrich, if he comes in and he does a really good job as defensive coordinator for you, he's going to get head coaching job looks. Saleh can do a great job for 3 years in a row, and he might not still get head coaching looks, just like Spagnuolo, because people are going to say he botched that situation in New York so bad. I almost said New Jersey. I mean, they are in New Jersey, but they botched that situation so bad. I don't know if he really ever gets another look at head coach. So you have a chance to be your defensive coordinator, be your Spagnuolo, who's for whatever reason, even with top defenses year after year, never gets a look and never leaves and is always the bane of our existence. Like, you can be that to somebody else.
He's absolutely the dream hire. The chat has been fired up about either Salah or Ulbrich. The chat also overwhelmingly has put hashtag stay. That, remember, that's what in their gut, what they think will happen, not what they want. And so and that's what I put too. I think that he'll stay. I don't want him necessarily to, and I won't be surprised, but if you push comes to shove, I think he stays. And the chat mostly agrees with that. I do like what Dr. Steve, he was one of the first ones to say go. And he mentioned that the fourth quarter, the giving up of so many points in the fourth quarter is definitely a key factor. And I want to transition that into the Lions game. I think we can't go the whole day
We need to
without.
come back to our weekly
Oh,
check-in.
yes, let's do
Cut
that.
Jake Brendel. Cornelius is on
Immediately.
there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. We've talked about it ad nauseum. The 49ers need a new center. That needs to be
That's
priority number 1, 2, 3, and 4 this offseason.
yeah.
Whatever you got to do, you have to make a trade. You have to, find who. I don't even know who the free agent centers are going to be this year. I'll look into it
But
here,
figure it out.
but we'll figure it out. Like, it's got to change.
Yeah. So thank you for the super chat. That is Cornelius's 10th super chat in this podcast. So
Wow.
shout out to Cornelius Merritt. Thank
How
you
do you
so
know
much,
that?
man. It comes up on my end. Maybe it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't come up on my end. That's
Well, my end's
wild.
cooler. The cool kids.
I guess.
So let's transition to Detroit. We don't have to, go into a crazy amount of like detail, but I am curious, and like I said, I know Marcos is going to the game. If anyone else is going to the game, check in. Let us know you're going to the game. I do think that I'll admit, man, it is fun. I never thought I would say this. It is fun as a fan of football to see what the Lions are going to do on offense. Whether they're going to have their tackle go out and try and throw a pass. I'm going to say that again. Their tackle is going to go out and throw a pass, or they're going to fake falling down, in which the coordinator is going to actually ask the quarterback, can you actually fumble it? Actually do it. Can you drop the ball? And the quarterback have to come back and say, well, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I'll just pretend to fall or whatever. And they do it for a touchdown. I mean, and these reverses, and just, I will admit that it is fun to watch, especially when they're not playing your team. Now, having said that, they are playing my team now, and it's in front of the whole country. So I'm a bit nervous, Johnny. Like, are they going to embarrass us?
They've been a very successful team this year. We are and they've built a depth D line. Like, their D line, they have depth, and they all
Because
play
they're all
well.
injured. They're still out there. Other
Well,
guys.
I mean, yeah, but like they have they're a deep defensive line, and their secondary is really good. This does not match up well. This is looking like their defense looks a lot more like the Chiefs than anybody else. They play a lot of man coverage. They have guys that can do it well. They have a defensive line that plays really sound assignment sound, and so they're really solid on those sides, as far as they're not looking for guys who can do 80 things really well. They look for guys that can do a few things really well. Now, if those guys end up having to step out of doing what they do really well, then they don't look nearly as good. But they can play that really well, and it's a really bad matchup. When you have guys that can play sticky man coverage, we are not good at
Yeah.
beating man coverage, especially when you lose Brandon Ayuk and you lose Christian McCaffrey. We are not particularly good on that side. So I don't expect that. When your offensive line has been your weakness and you're going against a defensive line that plays very assignment sound, that's not matching up well for you. I think this is a game that we score 13 points, maybe. It's hard for me to envision more than that just because I don't know where do you get the offensive production. They're going to double George Kittle. There just are. Like, they're going to double George Kittle. And now, okay, how do you match up everywhere else? It doesn't look good. It doesn't look like how do you keep from getting in third and longs? And you're looking at that you're probably not going to have Isaac Guerrero again. And which wasn't particularly good against the Rams, but you're just like, where do you get offensive production? And I don't see anywhere across the board with the way that things are right now, where that happens against this defense. And then from there, I think they're just going to wear down our defense. That offense, they're going to lean into the run game. They're going to bully and they're going to move people. Our defensive tackles have been moved off the ball far too much this
Let alone
season.
with their line.
It's just they're going to
Their
lean
line
on
is
those
really good.
guys. Yeah, they're just going to lean into them, lean on them, and hit the play action. And it's just I just don't see this as a game that matches up
So
right
the
now.
one thing, and Bill Manzera first says, "Man, watch us win this game." Like, that would be that the way the
Right?
NFL goes
Like,
sometimes, like the Browns beating the Ravens, or just like, dude, like, things happen. We're at home. We'll be fired up to play them, I think. But the other thing, because he asked ramifications for the playoffs, it's huge for the Lions because if
depending on how
and
the
how
Eagles do.
Minnesota does. Because here's the
Yeah.
thing, Minnesota, what's really crazy about the NFC Norris uh throwback, if you know what that is, the NFC Norris division. Um the One of those teams is going to get a very crappy seeding simply because they just didn't win their division, but they won a ton of games. And it's just the way it works
Yeah.
out. Sometimes Seattle at 7-9 got into the playoffs. So when we were like really bad, the Buccaneers one year were like 7-9 or 8-8, and like, oh, these teams don't belong, whatever. If you win your division, you're in the playoffs. That's all there's to it. And if you get second in your division and you win 12, 13, 14 games, you're not in that top seeding at all. And it's like, so no one, Minnesota or Detroit, is fascinating to me as an NFL fan because one of those teams is getting the shaft and they want to make sure that it ain't them. So when you say Detroit needs this game, Detroit really needs this game for pride of showing. They've showed the NFL the entire year that they're in discussion for the best football team on earth. They're in discussion for it because people don't believe in Kansas City because they win by a toe, and literally a toe. In their first game they won by Isaiah Likely having a
By a
toe out of
toe.
bounds. So all of their wins, people are writing off Kansas City, A, because they don't like them to keep winning, and B, because they're not blowing anybody out. Detroit has blown people out. They look tough. They like the coach. So it's like this game is so intriguing. It's Monday Night Football. You have guys that do not want to get embarrassed. And I would not be shocked. This is not me being a homer, but I would not be shocked if the 49ers find a way to do something and to win the game just because the way the NFL has gone this year. But that would be a huge detriment to Detroit. And I'll be honest, we've never talked about this because we've always been pretty good football team. But I'll be honest, I think if I had to root for a team, it's not going to be the Eagles to take the NFC to the Super Bowl. I think I might as well say Detroit. I mean, Detroit or Minnesota, and I think Detroit has a better chance.
I'm pulling Minnesota. Like, I don't know. There's just something about the idea of Minnesota with Sam Darnold.
I
Of course,
know.
if
I
Sam
know.
Darnold goes and is able to win a Super Bowl, we would
I
never
oh
hear the end of
god.
it. But
Well,
I
they're not
also
winning.
part
The
of me, okay,
NFC's not winning the Super Bowl, Johnny.
this
I'll
is
bet right now.
this is the petty part of me, okay? This is the petty part of me that really wants the Vikings to win the whole thing because of the entire Trey Lance versus Sam Darnold training camp number 2
Oh, that's not a thing anymore.
argument,
That's not a
war
thing.
that but it did
But
happen. It did
Johnny,
happen. There were people who were so
I
they
need the
talked
chat
for
to talk
weeks
him off the ledge.
about
Chat, get in
how
here and help me out.
about how irresponsible it was of Kyle
Yeah.
Shanahan to and how it wasn't based on the film. It wasn't based on how they played. That Sam Darnold should be the number 2 quarterback over Trey Lance. And so the petty part of me wants to see Sam Darnold win that Super Bowl and go,
See, no, but
you know,
yes.
you're right. You're right. Trey Lance should have been number 2 quarterback over
Yeah, the guy
that
who won the Super
guy.
Bowl.
Um, like that the petty part of me wants it because I was told I was being whatever for believing that also that Sam Darnold was a better fit at number 2 quarterback than Trey Lance.
So, all right, here we go.
So there's a petty part of me that wants
A
that
petty,
wants
petty
to see
part of
that.
you. A petty part of you. Yes. So here is Collator, the God Emperor Sam Darnold. Here is our last algo boost before we get out of here. Hashtag MN, hashtag DET, hashtag PHI. You will get booted out of the chat if you put hashtag PHI. Who is the team that you think will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl? I'm going hashtag DET. Um,
I think I mean look, it's hard to not see Detroit as representing uh the NFC at this point. I mean, they would have to have a collapse like they had last year. And then I think the bigger question is if they don't this year. If they don't, can that is what happened to the 49ers this year going to happen to that team next
yeah.
year? Where you have the brain drain of people picking at their coordinators, but you have
Tampa Bay.
the
That wasn't one of the options.
Tampa Bay.
Oh, we're trolling. I love it.
But just where you start to really question, is Dan Campbell is somebody who can get them over the top? Because that's going to be the question if they don't. And it would be rightfully asked, but if they don't, I think they're going to face the similar challenges or almost the exact same challenges that San Francisco has faced this year, where you've been so close and you just haven't been able to push it over the top the last couple of years, and there's serious questions going forward. There's going to be serious questions about Goff, and there's going to be serious questions about everything, because if with that, as talented as their offense is, and specifically their
Carolina.
offensive line, it does become pretty
Hallie.
tough. So, yeah,
Some of the chat's taking it
Carolina.
seriously,
Oh,
some
geez.
not. Johnny, we obviously need to boot a 49ers fan as he did exactly what I said not to do. He put hashtag Eagles. Oh man, banned for life, dude. Now
I
they are
mean,
playing well.
now look, as much as I hate the Eagles, again, it comes down to Vic Fangio. Do I trust Vic Fangio more than I trust Aaron Glenn in the playoffs? And I do. I trust Vic Fangio more. I think Vic Fangio has proven that he has been one of the game's best defensive coordinators for a very long time. And I think that was the best move that
Yeah.
Philadelphia did, was bringing in Vic Fangio. And that, again, that's why I'm for Robert Saleh coming in. I think he can be your Fangio. I think he can be your Spagnuolo, a guy that that for whatever reason doesn't get really a lot of head coaching looks. Vic famously got the look with the Bears or with the Broncos, and that fell apart. And he hasn't gotten a look since. And for because of how bad things went in Denver with him there. And so I think that you're going to have that same sort of situation with Saleh. So I really, That's what it comes down to. So in the playoffs, I trust Vic Fangio more than I do Aaron Glenn. Now,
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah,
seeing that,
that's
but
fair. And yes, as a football fan, I can admit that certain teams that I don't like are playing well. The Packers, the Eagles, you know, the Cowboys against, was it Cincinnati on Monday Night Football they won? They looked like a team that wants to keep their coach. Like, I will admit that I don't like the Cowboys, I don't like the Packers, I don't like the Eagles. I have no ill will towards Minnesota or Detroit, technically, especially not Detroit, because they've just been so bad. Minnesota has beat our butt every time we play there. That's been documented on this very show. But there's no like bad blood. And so it's like Minnesota or Detroit, I would definitely be okay with. And they haven't been there. One team has never been there at all, and one team has never won a Super Bowl after being there 4 times with A1 Fran Tarkenton. So it's been a while, obviously, that those teams could represent the NFC, and that's why I'm rooting for either one of those. I am also rooting for you to like and subscribe. Make sure that you have hit the notification bell so that you can be notified when we drop new content and when Johnny drops his videos. Be sure to go up to a 49er fan, especially if you're going to the game. Marcos, we're counting on some subscribers out of you, buddy, because if you're going to the
that's
game,
right.
that there's no excuse. You're going to be around a lot of 49er fans. So if you live in the Bay Area, can we count on you for 3 or 4 subscribers? Because all you got to do is show your
Yeah.
phone to someone and be like, you guys, hey, I see you're wearing Niner gear. You got to check out this channel. I do it in freaking
You
Indiana.
know what I would love to do sometime? You know what I'd love to do sometime, and I don't know how to make it happen. You know how in like the different political commentators, they'll have some of these videos every once in a while where it's like on a college campus or at a different place where it's like one guy, and then they just have a row of normal people coming up and trying to
Yes.
argue different points,
I watch some of those
and it
videos on
sometimes can
YouTube.
be healthy because it shows both sides of the
Yeah.
argument and people able to express things fully out. And it's not just echo chamber stuff. I would love to do that, like over Brock Purdy, for example, or Kyle Shanahan
So
at like a
you would be a
49ers
meme.
game, and like
Change my
set it up.
mind. You know those memes of the guy, he's wearing the blue and it says
Okay,
change my
yeah,
mind.
yeah. What's his butt there? That has some of the change. Yeah, that would be me. Like I would set up a table and be like, Kyle Shanahan should be our coach
Change
for the
my
next
mind.
5 years.
Yeah.
Change my mind, and have people come and sit down and we could talk. Like I would love to
I
do that.
know,
I don't know
right?
how
That's a
we
good
would do that, but
fantasy.
I would love to do that.
Speaking of fantasy,
That'd be something to do there if I could
yeah,
ever do that
speaking
at
of
a game.
fantasy, Glass City just simply wants you to apply to just, can you just coach? I don't think your Sunday job would quite mesh.
Yeah, I think there's some conflicts in my
And I
life
know you
already,
love what you
and
do.
yeah, that's a long way to move. That's
Yeah.
a long way to move.
Worth it,
Yeah.
but I get it, but I
So
get it. So yes, be sure, man, if you are living anywhere near the Bay Area, please take your phone and show it, because it's so fun then to be able to have them in the chat and talk about the Niners, even when we are not performing at the way that we know that we should be. So it's still always fun to hang out with you guys. Uh, Merry Christmas. I say that into January, technically, really. Don't take your Christmas lights down yet. Leave them up for a little bit, especially if you got kids. Let them enjoy it. Watch some Christmas movies still. We talked about that last episode. Uh, Definitely fun. So, Monday night, we take on the Detroit Lions. They are looking to restore the roar. They're so popular where I live.
hey, we should answer this question, Adam. Uh,
So Callie asks, um, if you're going to the Senior Bowl this year, and so are we? Would you like to break the news, Johnny?
Yeah, so as soon as we can make it official, we will make it official. But we will do this as like the Ian Rappaport, here's what I'm hearing from my sources. And my sources tell me that both myself and the illustrious Adam Marino will be at the Senior Bowl this year. Now, what are we waiting for? We're waiting for the Christmas break to happen and the Senior Bowl to officially grant us our credentials, which is not a difficult process, usually just a timing process. And we're both going to be down there in Mobile, scouting out players. We're going to try and be there for practice Tuesday, Wednesday,
So
and
Johnny,
Thursday.
here's what's
So
cool. When I
really,
applied, you scroll down and it's like ESPN, all this stuff that Fox Sports, whatever. And I was like scrolling down, what do I pick? What do I pick? I almost texted you, to be honest. And what do I see? Johnny Dell. I'm like, oh, I clicked that and it says what? Podcast host. I'm like, oh, well, don't mind if I do.
yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah, so in the media credentials section, you have to select what
Yep,
organization you're with, and because I have been credentialed before, I'm there on the list of credentialed organizations, and so Adam was able. Now, what the way they used to do in the past, I would have signed us both up.
sure.
That
Just get two
when I
passes or whatever.
applied for credentials, I could apply for, yeah, it would say, how many of
Team or
your
yeah.
organization do you need passes for, and I would put in, and I would put Adam in there as an extra one, but it
So I
didn't
had to
have
do it
that
on my
option
own.
this year. He had to
But I
do
did
his
it
own.
yesterday. I
Yeah, he
got
had
an
to do his
email
own on.
back already saying that they got it. And I'm
Yeah, they've received it and it's through the process. It's probably going to be after the first of the year. They get a little slower here during this time, and it's literally only like one person who does all the credentialing
sure.
applications. It's Molly does a great job. So if you're out there in the ether, Molly, you do a great job on it. And she has to, like, this last year, I think they had something like 1,000 media credentials that were
Sheesh.
granted last year for the Senior Bowl, and so she's got a lot to get through. She's got a lot on her plate
A
on
lot of
that. So,
content coming.
um, you know, we believe in you, Molly. But we will be there looking at what's there, because when you look at, like, especially free agent centers, there's only like two options I think that could be worth anything. And really there's three, but I think two of those are not going anywhere. You have like the Packers center and the Eagles center. I don't think they're going anywhere. Those are the only ones that I think that could be an upgrade. And then from there, it's going to be Ryan Kelly with the Colts, who is very expensive. I just don't know if they're going to be able to afford him
Yeah.
this year. So, pathway through free agency for upgrading the center position is tough.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm excited for the Senior Bowl because my birthday is that Thursday in that week, January 30th. So that'll just be fun. I mean, it's not like I would do much.
Well,
It's not
happy
like I would do
birthday.
much here in Indiana in the snow. Like birthdays here are not that big of a thing. And I'll be 44. That's not like a birthday that, other than that commercial, 44, that's me. I'm gonna get some cold cuts today. Other than that, I don't really have anything
Yeah.
going for me as the number 44. So,
And I'll take him to the USS Alabama. It'll be great. Be a
yep,
great
yep, just to hang
experience.
out and eat some barbecue with you,
For anybody,
I think
yeah.
will be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for anybody who's never been on an actual battleship, it's pretty interesting.
I've
It's
played
pretty
someone and they
amazing.
sunk my
So,
battleship. That's
no, 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 no. When you walk on an
oh,
actual
okay.
battleship, um, yeah, walk the hallways and
Don't let Johnny nerd
gangways
out.
of a
All right,
battleship.
Johnny,
It's
there's not enough time.
I'm not nerding out yet.
No,
But you better be ready. You
I
better be
like
ready.
history.
We're gonna be
I'm
full
not
on
as
nerd
nerdy as you, I'll
situation.
admit, but
Yeah.
I am excited to do stuff like that, to see, like, when you talk about tanks and all these ships and all that stuff. Like, I that will be cool. So I am definitely stoked. So
We'll have a good time. Plus, I found I went on it last year again, just to walk, like, make myself walk around for like 3 hours, because sitting in those bleachers at the Senior Bowl is hard on the back and stuff. You gotta like walk it out after a week of that, because it's like 5 hours a day on metal bleachers, and that's no bueno. Uh,
wear good shoes, your
so
wife is
yeah,
telling
I
me.
remember.
I'll only bring good shoes.
Yeah, we're probably gonna go
Yeah.
shoe shopping today. So.
Nice. Yeah, I'll bring my Nikes. I should be good. So yeah, thanks Johnny for being a part of helping me to get down to Bama. So yeah, to answer, basically all that was to answer Callie's question. He says, that's dope, guys. Congrats, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate you again boosting the algorithm, letting other Niner fans know that this is the channel to watch for the whys and hows of the game. Again, be sure to take your phone and show it to people. Also, check in at Sports Idiot Nation, my other show that comes out every Monday and Thursday. So yesterday, I'll tell you, yesterday's show was super fun because we did a year in review. So we went over every month the main
Mm.
stories from Shohei Otani, the gambling thing, to the Niners, not able to get it done, to Michigan controversy with Connor Stallions, with the Olympics with that Australian girl halfway dancing. I wouldn't call that. She was just drunk out there stumbling. We went over everything, and we give our award for the idiot of the year. We do a weekly segment that my buddy Miles does, idiot of the week. But since this is the year in review, and we go over the nominees, and it's I'll humble brag, I edited that part and I think it was fun. You got to check it out. It's the last part of the show. So Ray Gun, yes. So seriously, check out Sports Idiot Nation on YouTube. Last episode that came out yesterday, and go ahead and fast forward to the final like 10 minutes even if you want, and see the idiot of the year segment. It's it's pretty good. So I had fun doing that. Again, check out episode 15 is with Johnny, and we talk Niners and the team of the 80s and all that. That was super fun as well. So again, we will check in. Oh, Johnny, are we going Tuesday then?
We're
Yeah,
probably gonna
makes
go
sense. All right.
Tuesday, yeah.
So we will check in with you guys Tuesday. In the meantime and in between time, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.